Yes, hello, welcome back to the Rugby League Forecast podcast. My name is Connor Moran, and today I will be going through the best three props of the NRL era from 1998 to 2025. This one, just like the 5/8s and the halfbacks, I found quite difficult. A bit easier, especially than the halfbacks, but I had a list of about 6 or 7 names I put down, but got my three best. Took about 10 minutes to really work it out. Premiership certainly came into calculation when doing this. So let's get straight into it. So number 3, James Fisher Harris is my third best prop of the NRL era. What he has achieved in his career is beyond phenomenal. I'm going to say back in 2015, you knew that he was going to be a future NRL star. He played in the 2015 Holden Cup Grand Final against Manly, the likes of Jerome Luai, Nathan Cleary, Brent Naden in that side, future NRL players, possibly a future immortal in that Holden Cup side as well. James Fisher Harris, Moses Leota, Mitch Kenny, so many of those young players in those older Holden Cup sides from 10 years ago. And then you look 10 years later and see what James Fisher Harris has achieved in his career. When I think about James Fisher Harris, I don't necessarily think about just all the meters he makes and his leg drive, his offload ability. I think about his defense. I think the way in which he can read defense, rush up on a defender when needed, gets his timing right always. And for me, he's the best defensive prop we've seen in the NRL history. As I mentioned, what he's achieved: 4 grand final wins, 2021 against the Rabbitohs, 2022 against Parramatta, 2023 against Brisbane in the final couple of minutes, and 2024 against the Melbourne Storm. And, you know, the Bash brothers, his prop partner, Moses Leota, for many years there at the Penrith Panthers, what they were able to do was unbelievable. The way they were able to just carry the ball non-stop with the quick play of the balls, which then allowed Nathan Cleary and Jerome Luai, with the likes of Dylan Edwards, to have all the time in the world in attack to come up with options. I think James Fisher Harris. I think defense, quick play of the balls. I think leader, a leader of men. I just think he's an out and out champion. He's the third best prop in the NRL era, in my opinion. Now, before I go to my number 2 and then my number 1, I'd like to go to 4 and 5. And yes, it's about my top 3, but who just missed out on my top 3 list is Petro Civoniceva. What a player, not just for Brisbane. He actually went to the Panthers for around 4 years, which we forget about that, and then returned back to Brisbane to finish his career in the final couple of years. A tremendous player, Petro Civoniceva, winning a premiership in 2006. I think he may have been injured in the 2000 premiership. I'll have to double check that, but he's won a premiership, was a part of that Queensland dynasty, retired at the end of the 2012 Origin Series, an outstanding player, a leader of men, as well as James Fisher Harris. But, he wasn't the most skillful front rower, but you know what you're going to get out of Petro Civoniceva, and that was a reliable, consistent prop forward that was damaging, defensively strong. He did have the occasional offload in him, but he was more of just an out-and-out, run it up straight, make as many meters as he can and get to that quick play of the ball. He was very fearful, and I found it really difficult to not put Petro Civoniceva in my top 3 props of the NRL era. Glenn Lazarus, I had at number 5. Now, he would be in my top 3 of rugby league history, but as I mentioned, we are talking about the NRL era. Glenn Lazarus did win a premiership in the NRL era, believe it or not, in the second year of the Melbourne Storm's history. So the Melbourne Storm came into the competition when the National Rugby League began in 1998, and then Glenn Lazarus was the captain of the Melbourne Storm in 98-99, retires at the end of the 1999 Grand Final, where they beat the Dragons in the final stages of that game through a penalty try. We all remember the cartwheel that Glenn Lazarus did after that game. Famous scenes, famous memories. Certainly one of the great front rowers. As I mentioned, he'd been my top 3 of the rugby league history. What he was able to achieve is he goes to Canberra. He's a part of Canberra's first ever premiership. He then goes to Brisbane, a part of Brisbane's first ever premiership in 1992, goes to Melbourne, and he's all of a sudden in their second year, uh, um, part of their first ever premiership. I think he's the only player in rugby league history to go to three different clubs to win three different premierships in the club's first premiership. He's been such a big part of rugby league history, but not just history in rugby league. He's just the history within clubs. His name is cemented in the wars of Brisbane, Canberra, and the Melbourne Storm. Melbourne's first ever captain. Can you believe that the Melbourne Storm won a premiership in their second year of the NRL? Like in their second year of existence? Unbelievable. That's like the Dolphins winning the premiership last year in 2024. Absolutely unbelievable. They were down 14 points to nil at halftime to the Dragons in that game. The Dragons were dominating them, but Brett Comorley got the Clive Churchill medal winner. His performance and kicking game in the second half was just absolutely phenomenal. The way in which he was able to carry his side back to premiership victory, man, absolutely incredible performance from back then, a very young Brett Comorley. Glenn Lazarus, an incredible player. But I'll go to my number two, the second best prop of the NRL era. He retired at the end of the 2006 grand final win to the Brisbane Broncos, Shane Webcke. Unbelievable. No fear, no hesitation. He could just do anything at any time. Man, what a grand final farewell. You don't really think of many players in their career that finish their career as a grand final champion, but not many players get that grand final farewell, but Shane Webcke got it, and he got it good. He lifting up the trophy with Darren Lockyer at the end of that 2006 premiership winning game against the Melbourne Storm. Shane Webcke, just dominant. When I think of Webcke, I think of dominant, no fear, just ran over the top of men. And I hear from players, ex-players that played at the Brisbane Broncos on podcasts, they talk about Webcke, and that was just him. That he didn't have to put on a character to play football. Some players like Jake Trbojevic, you look at the nice guy, and then there's a switch, and then all of a sudden they just become this football player that will just do anything and do anything it takes to win. Shane Webcke was just Shane Webcke. Shane Webcke was the player off the field. He was very firm, a very angry man, from what I've heard on podcasts from numerous ex-Brisbane players. A good man, but a man you wouldn't want to mess with. And if you were going to do things, it was going to be the hard way. Shane Webcke, a tremendous career, absolutely tremendous career, winning the premiership for Brisbane in 1998, 2000, 2006. Wayne Bennett transformed him as a junior. He was a bit of an outsider in his career. He wasn't getting selected in certain things, but Wayne Bennett spotted him at a very young age. He was on Face to Face earlier in the year on Fox League. I remember being surprised about him saying things like he wasn't getting picked in. If it wasn't for Wayne Bennett, his career wouldn't have turned out the way it was. And the way in which he was able to transform his career into one of the best front rowers of the game's history, not just the NRL history, but of the game's history. I honestly would put Shane Webcke in my top three of rugby league history. Unbelievable player. I just remember this fend he had, and the way in which he would dominate instead of Origin. Man, just a complete leader. Just remember for Origin in Australia for around 5 or 6 years, it was always Shane Webcke in the number 8 jersey, and Petro Civoniceva in the number 10, and just a dynamic forward pack. The Broncos were very lucky to have Shane Webcke. In 2000, he played that grand final, which they ended up beating the Roosters with a broken arm. He just strapped it up and he played with a broken arm. So we talk about Cooper Cronk and what he achieved in 2018 with that shoulder. He probably shouldn't have played. Sam Burgess broken cheekbone in that 2014 grand final in the opening stages of that match. But I think it's a bit forgotten what Shane Webcke did through pain, through that premiership win for the Broncos in the year 2000. An incredible player. My number one, no surprise, Payne Haas. He's now number one for me because of the 2025 premiership win. As I mentioned earlier in the podcast, premierships did come into calculation for this. James Fisher Harris, 4 premierships. Shane Webke, 3. And Payne. Shane Webke may have been 4. I'm not sure if he was in the 1997 Super League one, but I'll double check that. Payne Haas. Man, 2025. I'm not. I don't like Brisbane. I'm a New South Wales through and through. I don't like the Queensland sides very much. Soft spot for the Gold Coast Titans because, like the Tigers, I want them to succeed. I think it'll be good for the game to see clubs that have struggled for many years start to succeed. But no, I'm a New South Wales man through and through. I hate Queensland. The Broncos, in my opinion, get a lot of uh, advantages. But I'll say this: they deserved that premiership win. I don't think we've ever seen a better grand final, a better final series, I should say, and grand final performance from Reece Walsh. We talk about Nathan Cleary, but that was the last 16 minutes of the match where he started to really transform that game. Reece Walsh did it for 80 minutes. Unbelievable. Final series against Canberra. Payne Haas was a huge part of that. But when I talk about Brisbane and the advantages they get, you only have to look at the draw. I think in the first 12 or 13 matches, the first 17 matches, they had about 12 home games. I'll have to double check that. But yeah, I remember looking at the draw going, wow, like 70% of their games were home ones. And I just think they, a lot of the time, I just believe that most clubs would love their draw. They get 6-7 day turnarounds a lot of the time. They love playing at Friday nights. And yeah, I don't know. I just think that they're just a club that, the Broncos, the Roosters, the Sharks, hate's a strong word, but I just wouldn't want to see them win again for a while. That's just my honest opinion as a rugby league fan. As all of you guys watching would have teams you just don't like and you don't want to see win, and I think that just makes the game so special. I'm glad that I'm a passionate rugby league supporter because I'm glad I have teams that I very much dislike and have a strong opinion on it. Because it just makes the game what it is. For me, it makes it more enjoyable having that passion behind when I watch rugby league. And I didn't want to see the Brisbane Broncos win the premiership, especially because Queensland had won the Origin. And if it was Penrith and Brisbane, I was going for Penrith even after 2 games, premierships in a row. And the only reason why was because it was Penrith, New South Wales. They're located in New South Wales. Queensland, yeah, I don't know. But in saying everything I've just said, I honestly believe the Broncos deserved that premiership win. From what they did in the finals to come back against Canberra, they were gone in that game. I've never seen a team with so much character in a final series. What they were able to achieve against Penrith, everything was against them in the first half. They managed to turn it around through the golden boot of Adam Reynolds and their grand final performance. Things didn't go well for them. Things didn't go right for them, but they found a way. And as a rugby league fan that don't necessarily like the side, like the club, I think it's just one of those things where you just have to put your dislike aside and call it for what it is, and that is a great premiership winning team. That I don't think we've seen a better season of rugby league since 2005. 2025, best year in 20 years, and Brisbane ended up winning it. And I dare say, whoever ended up, I remember thinking 6 months ago, whoever wins this competition will thoroughly deserve it. And I stand by it. The Brisbane Broncos, unbelievable and well-deserved. And as I mentioned, it was on the back of Payne Haas. Everything that happened in the final series was based on Payne Haas and what he did in that number 10 jersey for the Brisbane Broncos. Yes, Ben Hunt got the field goal against the Raiders. Yes, Adam Reynolds got the penalty conversion, got the conversion from the sideline, not the penalty. But Payne Haas, if you look at his performances against Canberra, against Penrith, and then against the Melbourne Storm, I did not think at the end of round 27 that Payne Haas could play it any better. I actually didn't think it was humanly possible. But he took it up a level. And when I say taking it up a level, he got himself involved in the game and did he didn't go overboard. He didn't make the mistakes that many players and front rowers like to do it. Try to get involved, and sometimes it can go against them. Sometimes being too involved can actually ruin the balance of the side. You exhaust yourself out too quickly. Payne Haas has this never-ending motor, but he balanced it. You know, he didn't go too hard too early. He balanced it out, and the way in which he picks and chooses his moments to be dynamic in the game, spot on. For me, when I think about Payne Haas, I don't just think about his aggression. I don't just think about his motor. I don't just think about his offloads, his skill. I think about his attitude. I think about the way in which he gets his timing right. It's all the little things behind the scenes that I look at Payne Haas and think, this is why he's so good, because he picks his moments. An incredible player. I think he made his debut under Wayne Bennett, I'm going to say in 2018, Wayne Bennett's final year. Got to double check that, but I reckon 2018. And I remember back then watching his first game, he was about to come on from the bench, and there was just a look in his eye where you knew that this bloke was going to do some damage. In 2022, I remember him walking on the sideline, and he announced that he was probably going to leave Brisbane, and he got booed. And he came out, he was honest after the game and said, yeah, that felt terrible. I didn't like that. Resigns with Brisbane under Kevy. But even if you look at Brisbane in that 2020 season where they got the wooden spoon, Payne Haas was incredible in that season. Just the best front rower in the NRL. Just so damaging. Just every quality you want in a front rower, he's got. But as I mentioned, the little things, the consistency, the reliability, his timing. It's not just his dominant ways. It's the way in which he can just, as I mentioned, pick and choose his times to do things and do things correctly. Defensively strong. He talks a lot on the field. He's a big communicator. If you watch him in defence, he's talking as much as Paddy Carrigan does. He's a talker. He leads by example, and just a terrific, player. And as I mentioned, you know, I'm just honest. The Brisbane Broncos aren't my favourite club. They're probably the club I dislike the most alongside the Sydney Roosters. But you know, if I'm to be completely honest, it's probably just the Queensland thing, right? But I just hate Queensland. Like not the state itself. I think it's beautiful, but just origin. You know, I love to hate Queensland because it makes rugby league better. To be completely honest, and Payne Haas is just an absolute champion. So that's my top three. Payne Haas is number one. Shane Webke, number two. Number three, James Fisher-Harris. Just left out Petro Civoniceva and Glenn Lazarus in the number five, as number five. It just, you know, an incredible list. We've been very fortunate as rugby league fans to have such dominant front rowers in the history of the NRL. So thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe on YouTube if you haven't already. Please follow on Spotify, the Rugby League Forecast podcast. I'd love to follow you back if you're, you know, going to be part of this community. Please leave comments too if you disagree with anything I've said, especially if you're a Broncos fan and you don't like what I've said. Go ahead. You know, I welcome any opinions, any criticism, because I want everyone to feel a part of this podcast community. Even if you disagree, that's fine. That's what I love about rugby league. Everyone disagrees, everyone agrees, but at the end of the day, it brings people together. Yeah, that's all I've got to say is the best three props: Payne Haas, Shane Webke, James Fisher-Harris. Let me know yours. Cheers, guys.